So, you are a connector. That means that people are precious to you. You just love people. But what if someone mistreats you very badly? Are you still required to be polite to them? You can establish a moment with a person who is very unkind or rude or abusive to you. You can establish a moment in which it is clearly understood that you have nothing to do with that person. For example, I had a neighbor once who was paranoid about dogs, and I had two small dogs, and he hated the fact that my dogs had a small enclosed area in part of my front yard because they would bark whenever they saw somebody, but they were small dogs. And he became so obsessed with my dogs that he broke the fence that and let the dogs out. Now the dogs were very afraid of being out. In fact, on my ring at 1:30 in the morning, you could see my dogs trying to get into the house by whining and knocking on the door. But we were asleep and didn't hear them. So what did he do? He put my dogs in his car and took them to get lost. And I never saw them again. But I put up posters all over the neighborhood on the lampposts, the city lampposts. And one of the city lampposts is across the street from his house. And every time I put up a poster, he would tear the poster off. And I put up 4 or 5 posters, and he kept tearing them down. My poster said, "Lost dog, reward." This and other clues made me understand that he was part of the problem, that he had done something to my dogs because he didn't want them found. And there were other things. I saw that the fence had been moved on his part where he closest to his house, that he had done all that. And I have him on camera where he leaned up against the enclosure and in a very hostile manner to get my dogs to bark. And they were barking their heads off, so I looked out the window, and there he was, plastered against the fence, not even on his own property. Then he backed off 1 foot, and the dogs were immediately quiet. And then he walked into his front yard, about 15 yards away, and yelled, "Shut up," when nobody was barking. I think he's an addict, but anyway, very hostile behavior. Obviously not someone that treats me well or that we can trust. But he's also a hypocrite, and a few days later, while we were trying to install a security camera, he comes up all friendly. "Is there anything I can do to help you guys?" And I said very coldly, "No, thank you." And I gave him a cold stare. Well, that was a moment in which I established a boundary. I am not speaking to you. You have nothing to do with us. Because he's a hypocrite. And he thinks he can fool everybody. And so I don't want anything to do with the addict that lost my dogs and tears down my posters. That was establishing a boundary. I didn't curse him out. I didn't call him names. Not out loud anyway. But I will have nothing to do with him. He doesn't deserve my attention. And I don't have to be discourteous because I made it clear that I don't want anything to do with him. And I no longer speak with him because he keeps tearing down my posters. And I have him on camera near the lamppost. So, for a long time. So, you can establish boundaries. You can cut off a relationship when the abuse is not acceptable. But you still owe people in general common courtesy, excuse me, thank you, etc., on a very formal level. If you have you simply don't like them and they've done nothing against you. You don't want to be responsible for being the initiator of hostilities for no reason. So, if something egregious has not been done to you by other people, even someone you dislike, you have no business being rude. If someone has violated fundamental principles and trusts with regard to you, as my neighbor once did, well, then you establish a boundary. You say, that's enough. No more hypocrisy. You say this to yourself. I'm not having anything more to do with somebody who is not trustworthy. And you just establish a clear boundary, and it's over. Treat other people the way you want to be treated. Now, that neighbor did something very wrong. He took my dogs to get lost on a street that they were last sighted a mile away. They would never have found their way back. And they suffered, I'm sure. I don't know where they are. I've looked at the pound and everything every day practically. So this person does evil things. And I won't have anything to do with him. Not because I'm judging him, but I can't trust him in his relationship with us. And then that's when you can establish a boundary without being continually rude in that person's presence. If that person is someone you cannot avoid, I can avoid my neighbor, but if this is someone you cannot avoid, such as a relative, then you owe them common courtesy if you're going to be around them. If you choose to go and be around a relative to whom you have hostility, if you choose to be present, then you owe them courtesy, common courtesy. Good morning, good afternoon, goodbye, and you don't get an attitude toward them in front of other people either. You don't do that. You give them common social courtesy because that's all it is. It's just common social courtesy. Remember that distinction. If they've done nothing to you, then you have no business mistreating them or setting up hostility, and especially if they've done nothing. So give everybody the same treatment, common courtesy. Give your friends special warmth, and give enemies the boundary line.